Okay, we're back. Talking more about chapter 8, cell reproduction. First, we'll talk about mitosis out of control, cancer cells. And then we'll get into sexual reproduction and looking at the sexual cell division, meiosis. And I think that's all we'll get to in this session. So this is going to be 106 cell repro 2. Okay. Cell cycle control system. This mitosis process, it has to be controlled. And there are special proteins in cells that can turn on mitosis when you want to turn it on, and turn off mitosis when you want to turn it off. And any kind of problem in either one of those, turn it on when it's inappropriate to turn it on, or not be able to turn it off when it's already been turned on. Either of those can cause mitosis to get out of control, and that's what cancer is. Okay, so it's a cell cycle control system that sort of is a self-checker as the cell is going through mitosis, checking everything's going well. And if something doesn't go well, if something goes wrong, then cells can commit suicide. It's called apoptosis. And they can, or they'll alert your immune system. Hey, I got a problem here. I may not be able to stop dividing. So here's this signal here. Please come and kill me. And that's one of the major things your immune system does is it recognizes cells that have become cancerous and kills them. But doesn't get all of them. And sometimes people do get, lots of people get cancer. Okay. These proteins integrate information from the environment and from other cells, send stop and go ahead signals at certain key points during the cell cycle, particularly when the DNA is being replicated. So there are proteins to check and see whether everything's been replicated properly, everything's good, we can go forward. If not, apoptosis. Okay, so cancer is a disease of the cell cycle. And cancer cells do not respond normally to the cell control system. And it's something called contact inhibition, as a matter of fact. In some people who do cell culture, they grow cells in a petri dish, and once all the cells touch one another and form one plate, they stop. But cancer cells, they don't stop. They pile on top of each other and keep on going. They divide excessively. And the real danger is that they will invade other tissues of the body. And this is the difference between benign cancer and malignant cancer. Benign cancer just gets larger and larger and larger, and it doesn't go anywhere else. And you can cut it out. Like a lot of regular skin cancer of your keratinocytes, the regular skin cells, you just cut them out. And also they call benign. Malignant starts off sort of like benign. It just starts this tumor, this growth. If you catch it early enough, you can cut it out, get rid of it. But if you don't catch it soon enough, it metastasizes. Metastasis is the spreading of these cancer cells to other parts of the body, usually through the lymphatic system, and starting cancers all over your body. And that's when the only thing left to do then is chemotherapy, which is essentially poisoning your whole body. Okay, so sickle cell undergoes genetic changes, mutations in one or more genes that encode for proteins in the cell control system. Like I said, growth factors. Some genes code for growth factors, and they're called proto-oncogenes. And they make these growth factors. And these growth factors turn on mitosis. So somehow there could be a mutation in that gene when these proteins are turned on when they're not supposed to be turned off. Or there's also called cancer suppressor genes that code for proteins that turn off mitosis. And if there's a mutation in one of those, and it can't turn off mitosis when it's turned on, that can also, and these changes cause a cell to grow abnormal, out of control. Okay, as I said, cancer cells form tumors, abnormally growing masses of body cells. If the cells remain at the original site, it's a benign tumor. and you just cut it out. Malignant tumors, though, spread into neighboring tissues and other parts of the body, forming new tumors and can interrupt organ function. And so an individual with a malignant tumor is usually said to have cancer. And the spread of cancer cells, as I mentioned, beyond the original site, called metastasis. And that's the danger with cancer. So here's tumor grows from a single cancerous breast cell. Cancer cells invade neighboring tissues, and then those cancer cells enter the lymphatic system, which is another circulatory system in your body. And this is how cancer spreads through what's called the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system eventually, all this fluid in the lymphatic system eventually gets back into your blood system, and then your blood goes everywhere. And so these cancer cells get established in all other kinds of different places. And that's malignancy. Okay. So even with a malignant tumor, you detect it soon enough, you just cut it off. Like I said, skin cancer is a good example of benign or malignancy. The regular skin cells are called keratinocytes. And they generally, if they become cancerous, they stay benign. And you just have these growths cut off of your body, and it's gone. But the melanocytes, the cells that give your skin its pigment, they, for some reason, if they turn cancerous, they turn malignant. They go through metastasis, and they spread cancer other places. So people who die of skin cancer are dying from what's called a melanoma. And that's why they always say if you have a mole or a birthmark somewhere on your body and it starts changing shape, getting larger, changing color, get thee to a dermatologist, get thee to a doctor as soon as possible, and then you cut it out. And then you don't have to worry about it, it's gone. Or sometimes if the tissue really can't be cut out, but it's in early stages, you can use radiation therapy. And radiation actually can cause cancer, but also can kill cancer, because radiation kills cells. So if you point the radiation at the part of the body that's becoming cancerous, it can kill those cells. But then after metastasis, when the cancer is spread, then chemotherapy is the only thing left. And it's really bad because they're terrible poisons. You're actually when people in chemotherapy, you're actually poisoning your entire body. Every cell is affected. That's why they start losing their hair. So that's why I start feeling tired or something. And it's terrible. But it works because one thing we don't talk about too much about mitosis is how much energy is used for mitosis. Mitosis uses a tremendous amount of energy. And so the metabolism of these cancer cells is sky high. So a lot of these chemotherapy drugs are metabolic inhibitors. They inhibit metabolism. So all of your cells, the metabolism of all of your cells is being inhibited. But the metabolism of cancer cells is so high that they are preferentially killed before the rest of your cells are killed. Right? Okay, so I give you one that is, everybody's got a risk of cancer. It can strike out of nowhere, even if you don't have any risk factors. Like smoking, for example. All right, does smoking cause lung cancer? No, it doesn't. What it does, it puts you at an incredibly higher risk for it. All right, you have an inherent risk for lung cancer, even if you don't smoke. I always give the example of Christopher Reeve's wife, who died of lung cancer. How many cigarettes did she smoke in her life? Zippo, none. She died of lung cancer. While there's Winston Churchill, who smoked like a chimney his entire life. And I'm not sure what he died of, but it wasn't lung cancer. So life's a crapshoot. Okay? But, so you can put yourself at risk, at higher risk, behind the inherent background risk by doing certain behaviors like smoking, like not exercising adequately, like spend too much time in the sun, or eating a high fiber, low fat diet. That would help you. So smoke. So these are things that are helping you. Not smoking, exercising adequately, avoiding excessive exposure to the sun, eating a high fiber, low fat diet, performing self-exams so women do breast exams where they look for lumps in their breast. Men should do testicular exams. Feel your testicles and see whether there's any lumps in there, or look at any kind of birthmarks, right? And regularly visiting a doctor to identify tumors early. Like I said, getting to it early is the real key. Okay, so then we do cancer. Let's get to sexual reproduction. Let's talk sex. Produces offspring that contain a unique combination of genes from the parents and depends on the cellular processes of meiosis and fertilization. So here's the thing. Do you need sex to make babies? Well, just generally in all of the life on Earth. Do you have to have sex to make babies? No, we're talking about asexual reproduction. Lots of organisms make babies without sex. Not exclusively. There's very few that don't use sex at all, but a lot of them can use both processes, all right? So what's the difference between babies made asexually and babies made sexually? The big thing is genetic variability. If you make babies asexually, they are clones of each other. They're genetically identical. Now, remember, mutations always happen. So even asexually reproducing organisms change over time because of mutations, but they change very slowly and they're virtually clones of each other. So every sibling is identical twin to its other sibling and identical to their mother. And there are no fathers, no males. So all of them are the same gender and they're all of virtually genetically identical. While sexually reproducing organisms, they're genetically variable. Each child is genetically different from the other child and different from their two parents. Right? Now there are, like I said before, huge disadvantages to sex. Because for one thing, the whole thing is to pass your genes on to your offspring. What percent of your genes do you pass on to your offspring if you're asexual? 100%. What percent of your genes do you pass on to your offspring if you do sex? 50%. You lose half of it. Then you got to scramble these genetic combinations. I mean, there's very few in the natural world. There's very few organisms that live long enough to be able to make babies on their own, because it's a really harsh world out there. Okay. And so if you've got a good genetic combination and it got you to where you actually grew up to be old enough to make babies and you made babies, why do you want to screw up that combination? But we do, we screw it up. And I think I mentioned it in an earlier lecture about the Red Queen hypothesis, that in order to keep up with the changes of our pathogens, we need to use sex. Because our generation time is so long compared to theirs, okay? Okay, different individuals of a single species have the same number and types of chromosome. All right. So humans, let's use humans for example. A human somatic cell. Now what's a somatic cell? A somatic cell is a cell that's not involved with the reproduction of the organism, all right? It may reproduce itself in mitosis, but it's not involved in the reproduction of a whole other organism of the same species. Typical body cell. Like a skin cell, a brain cell, a liver cell, whatever. It has 46 chromosomes. That's our number. That's our what's called diploid number. Right? And as I mentioned, as I showed you in the earlier slide, every species has a sort of a different number, a diploid number. As I mentioned, onions have 16 chimpanzees have 48, fruit flies have 4. Anyway, so producing a karyotype. What is a karyotype? Is a visualization of your chromosomes, all right? So you break open a human cell in metaphase of mitosis, stain the chromosome with dyes, take a picture with the aid of a microscope, and arrange the chromosomes by matching pairs in size. Now we'll get to what matching pairs is, called homologous chromosomes. And size also, because you have 23 pairs of chromosomes. The low number pairs are quite large. As you get a larger and larger number down to the 22nd pair, they get smaller and smaller. So you can arrange them by size and by matching pairs. And here we are, pair of homologous chromosomes. Now well, it defines homologous chromosomes in the next slide, but let me tell you right now, they're chromosomes that have the same genes on them. The same genes. One of them is from your mother, you got one from your mother, you got one from your father. So 1 through 22. So we call a paternal chromosome and a maternal chromosome. And then the karyotype, they can line them up like this. And here's pair number 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 22. Those are called autosomes. They're not involved with the reproduction, they're not involved with the gender of the individual. And remember, each a pair of homologous chromosomes, it's called a tetrad because there are 4 chromatids. 2 of the chromatids on one replicated chromosome held together by a centromere. 2 sister chromatids on another, on a matching pair, held together by a centromere. So there's 4 chromatids. And if they're on the same chromosome, they're sister chromatids. If they're on different chromosomes, they're called non-sister chromatids. Not brother chromatids, but non-sister. Because sister chromatids are genetically identical in every way. Same genes, same alleles. Non-sister chromatids are genetically identical in having the same genes, but they could have different alleles at those loci. Right? And then finally, we get down to this pair of chromosomes. This is the only pair that's not homologous, and that's an X and a Y. So this is a male. He's got a Y chromosome. If the X and the Y is not homologous to the X, it's got different. The Y has different genes than the X has, and the X has different genes than the Y. If this was a female, then she'd have 2 X's, and she would have 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes. So this X is homologous to X, but Y is not. Okay. There it is. Homologous chromosomes resemble each other in length and central position and carry genes controlling the same inherited characteristics. But they could have different alleles at their loci. Remember, locus is the location on a chromosome where a gene is located, and different alleles can fit in those different locations. So, as I mentioned, 46 chromosomes, 22 pairs of matching chromosomes called autosomes, 2 different sex chromosomes, X and Y, which determines a person's sex or gender. So we have, so human beings have genetic gender determination. Now, some other organisms have that same way of determining gender, but there are other ways you can determine gender. But we're going to use humans for example here. So in mammals, males have 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome. Females have 2 X chromosomes. Okay, gametes in the life cycle of a sexual organism. So the life cycle of a multicellular organism is a sequence of stages leading from the adults of one generation to the adults of the next generation. So So having two sets of chromosomes. So you have two sets of instructions on how to make and maintain a human being in every one of your cells. The same two sets. One set you got from your mom, one set you got from your dad. All right. So having two sets of chromosomes, one inherited from each parent, is a key factor in the life cycle of humans and all the species that reproduce sexually. Because you're going to give, if you're going to make babies, you're going to give your babies only one of those sets, 23 chromosomes. You have two sets, you're only going to give them one set. And your sexual partner is going to give that baby the other set to make a diploid. So here we go. Multicellular diploid adults, right? They go through a process of meiosis, and we're gonna get into meiosis. Maybe not in this lecture, but perhaps. But meiosis is called reduction division. It makes gametes. Gametes are called haploid cells because they have half the number of chromosomes that the normal somatic cells have. And so you have to make cells that have half the number of chromosomes. And they're eggs and sperm. So they're gametes. We have one large gamete that's immobile, called an egg or an oocyte. And we have small mobile gametes called sperm cells, which males make. And well, as a matter of fact, here's the interesting thing. How do you define male and female? You know, how do you define it? Is it that males have two X's, that females have two X's and males have an X and Y? Well, that works for humans and the rest of the mammals, but doesn't work for other things like birds and reptiles and amphibians and plants. It doesn't work for them because they have different ways of determining gender. So that won't work. How about organs, sexual organs? Males have a penis, women have a vagina. Well, that works for mammals again, but it actually might even work. It works for reptiles also, but it doesn't work for amphibians. It doesn't work for plants. And you know, plants make eggs and sperm also. So it's not organs. It's not the chromosomes you have. It's what gamete you make. That's the key. Females make egg cells. That defines what a female is. Males, so they make the large immobile gamete. Males make sperm. They make the small mobile gamete. And that defines, so if you're a male mammal or male bird or male reptile or amphibian or even male tree, you make sperm. If you're female, you make eggs. All right. Across the entire panoply of life on Earth, except for fungi and protists. As a matter of fact, there's no such thing as a female fungus or male fungus because they don't make eggs and sperm. Their gametes are different. They make different kinds of gametes. And they have sex in a little bit different kind of way. And so, and same thing with like amoebas or algae. They don't make eggs. They make gametes, but they're not, or some, well, no, that's a good one. They make gametes, but they're different. They're not eggs and sperm. So they have gender, but they're not called male and female. They're called something else. Okay. Now, we get this egg and sperm together somehow. How do we get the egg and sperm together? Let me see if we can figure it out. How do you put eggs and sperm together? Well, it's called, the official word for it is coitus. There's lots of names for it. Sexual intercourse. There's lots of names for it. We're not going to go talk, we're not going to use any of those names except for coitus. That's the official term for it. We have coitus, and human beings have internal fertilization. So males put the sperm into the female, like all mammals. the sperm goes into the female, has internal fertilization, where the two haploid cells get together to make a diploid cell called a zygote. And all eggs have got, an X in them. Sperm cells could have an X in it or a Y in it. And so this determines the gender of the baby. Dad determines the gender of the baby, not mom. Because sperm come in two varieties. They carry an X or they carry a Y. If the one carrying an X fertilizes the egg, you got a little baby girl. If the Y sperm fertilizes the egg, you got a little baby boy. Okay, so then we've gone from haploid here to diploid, and then through mitosis, we go through and make these multicellular diploid adults. All right? So that's the human life cycle, and really the life cycle of all mammals. And actually of all animals and lots of plants. Anything that makes eggs and sperm goes through these cycles of meiosis, fertilization, mitosis, and have a haploid stage, which are the gametes, and then the diploid stage when they're adult. Because actually fungi and protists are a little unusual. They go through meiosis and fertilization and mitosis, but their bodies are actually haploid, not diploid. So they do things in a little different way. Okay, like I said, humans are said to be diploid because all body cells contain pairs of homologous chromosomes, right? Well, remember, females have 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes. How many pairs of homologous chromosomes do males have? 22. Because they got a Y. And remember, the X and Y are not homologous. So males only have 22 pairs of homologous chromosomes. And a haploid cell only has one member of each pair of homologous chromosomes. That's why sperm either has an X or a Y. But all eggs have got a Y. Okay, a haploid sperm cell from the father fuses with the haploid egg cell from the mother in a process called fertilization. Of course, first of all, you need coitus to put them together, all right? Or if you do an in vitro fertilization, you take eggs and sperm from mom and you put it together in a petri dish, and then you implant it into mom. But the normal way is through coitus, okay. Resulting fertilized egg called a zygote is diploid with two sets of chromosomes, one set from each parent. So all sexual life cycles involve this alternation of diploid and haploid stages. And producing haploid gametes by meiosis keeps the chromosome number from doubling in every generation, right? Because if you had if you kept eggs and sperm 46, then the resulting offspring would be 92. And then you have two 92s together to get up, 184, so on and so forth. So you always stays the same number in humans, 46. Okay. I'm going to stop right here before we actually get into meiosis, because it's a long topic and I don't want to break it up in the meantime. So this one's going to be a little shorter than usual. So I'll pick up meiosis on the next video lecture. So this is 106 Cell Repro 2. So catch you in the next